Good morning, Warzone kids. It's a beautiful day on the trail to the Western Lands. I see rosy-fingered Dawn's cheeks blushing up over the mountains just ahead. Can't see her, she's behind some trees, but I know she's there. The rosy-fingered Dawn that greets you on the morning of every day of your life. The rosy-fingered Dawn was there to greet you on the morning after the worst day of your life. And she was there the day after that. And she'll be there every day of your life till she kisses you to sleep on your last day on the trail. Rosy-fingered Dawn. It's a beautiful day. Let's be thankful for her. And let's be thankful for the Grail Woods. Last one I talked about being lost in the Grail Woods and that advice Gandalf gave to the hobbits in The Hobbit, where he told them they're headed into Mirkwood Forest, and Gandalf told them, stay on the path. That's good advice, but man, is it tricky in the Grail Woods, because any path you see in the Grail Woods ain't your path. It's a ghostly path, it's a haunted path, an enchanted path that's going to take you round and round in circles and spit you back out the way you came into Grail Woods. The only path for you, pilgrim, in the Grail Woods is the path that you make while you're discovering it, and the path that you discover while you're making it. That's the path that leads you out to the other side. Last time I told you about walking around in circles for 20 years. That's a long time. But today's today. Today ain't them 20 years. Today's just today. And I'm not in the Grail Woods today. Sorry about that. I'm not in the Grail Woods today. I'm on the Moonlight Miles today, but I can remember the Grail Woods. Let me tell you a little bit about what it's like getting through them. 1 foot at a time. You just put 1 foot ahead of you where you can see. You pick up your foot and you put it down. You can see where it is. That's your step. Then you take the other one. You repeat. And you stay off any path that ain't yours. And you know it ain't yours because it's a path you can see. That's just how it works. Sorry. But I'll tell you about a time in my adult life in the last 5-10 years where I remember learning about the Grail Woods for myself. I didn't call it that, but I remember a time when I was learning how to make my own path. I got a shrink. He's, at last count, 482 years old this year, I think. He's a good fella. He's like an actual life coach. He's a Jungian psychoanalyst, And that just means, basically, for my purposes, that means he has a belief that we have a human psyche. We have a soul. We have a Jenga tower, to use my metaphor. We have a Jenga tower. We have a psyche. And if you have a lot of bias against Jungian psychoanalysis because you read the Wikipedia article about it and you think that it's a lot of religious beliefs about archetypes and animus and anima and shadows and all that, that's all well and good. But the experience of having a guide help you in that way is that you got someone who has an idea that we have a soul. It's a whole thing. We are a whole human being. And a lot of us Warzone kids, those of us that had a childhood more like a low-grade guerrilla war than a supportive nursery. Those of us Warzone kids, I'm a child sex abuse survivor. As an adult, I live with borderline personality disorder, and I'm a recovering addict and bulimic. A lot of harm caused to me in my childhood, emotional harm, neglect, emotional neglect, psychological abuse and harm. My shrink is a guy that helps guide me toward learning and becoming who I am, toward the Western Lands, a place of peace and wholeness. And he does this by just asking me questions and reflecting back to me what he hears me say about my life in a way that draws attention to what my actual life is. It's an experience. It doesn't have anything to do with theories about archetypes and all that. He can have those in his mind and he can write whatever he wants about me in his little notebook. I never want to read one word of it. But I noticed the first few years I saw this guy, I'd tell him about my life and I would learn how to share my life with another human being, instead of sharing the stories about my life that I told myself. I would share with him the story that I told myself about my life, and then he would ask me any number of provocative, annoying questions that indicated he didn't particularly buy the story I was selling about my own life. He just saw the plot events of my actual life, and he heard the story I was telling myself about my life, and he would point out the vast gulf between the two. And for every 100 things he pointed out, like breadcrumbs he put out in front of me, for every 100 things he might have pointed out to me, like a chicken, I might have pecked at 1 or 2 of them. And all the rest, I thought he was off base and just being annoying. I've learned different. I've learned now that whenever he is annoying and asks me a question that I think he just doesn't get what I'm talking about, well, one of us doesn't get the reality of what's going on, and it's usually me. So I've just learned when he throws out little breadcrumbs in front of me, little pointers to my own psyche, I just peck at him. I believe he's seeing something that's there that I can't see. That's what the experience of old school psychoanalysis is. He ain't trying to give me 10 tips to get through the day. He ain't trying to give me some special, tactics and exercises I can do, because I myself, this guy, doesn't need that. And if you do, go get it. But that's not what I needed. I'm a cerebral guy. I can learn things with the front part of my brain all day and all night. But it's the back part of my brain, it's the whole Jenga tower that I've got that I need to work on. That's for me. You find a person that resonates with you. Now, the first couple years I saw this guy, he annoyed the bejesus out of me by constantly asking me questions about what I liked. What makes you happy, Ben? What do you like doing? And I'd answer him. I didn't know what I liked. I had a real problem with poetry when I was a kid, because poetry, like music, only has one meaning, and that's whatever it means to you. And poetry is an art form that's about response, like how do I respond to it? And I could never get into it at all, because I was just trying to find the right answer. I was trying to decode the meaning. What does it mean? What do I write on the test? What do I say about this so the teacher will like me and think I'm smart? That ain't no way to read poetry or listen to music, and it ain't no way to live your life. The word for that is narcissism, when you're far more concerned about what other people think of you and what you imagine that what you yourself, you are whatever you can get other people to think you are. I believe that's a hardcore of narcissism. I'm very familiar with it. But he would ask me questions about what I myself liked. I didn't know. I was too busy trying to get as high a status as I could figure out how to get, how to be whatever Ben that the person in front of me wanted me to be. I'm kind of an octopus by nature, to use that kind of language. Well, I got sensitive emotional antenna, and they'll tell me whatever kind of Ben I need to morph into being, so I'm the right color, texture, shape, and size that the person in front of me wants to see. Asking me any kind of questions about what I really liked at that time was like wondering what color is an octopus in a hall of mirrors. What color is an octopus when there's nothing to blend in with? Ponder on that. What color is an octopus in a hall of mirrors when all it can see is itself? I didn't know. I didn't know what I liked. But that annoying old man kept asking me. He kept asking me, and he kept asking me. And he would just observe that sometimes when I gave an answer, my eyes would light up. And I'd feel he would detect a little ember of life, a little spark of real life. The Ben, the octopus in the hall of mirrors. What that octopus does when it's inside Schrodinger's box, and no one knows what color, shape, size, and texture it is. What do I like? And I started to notice that that's what he was asking me, and I started to put some more effort into being able to figure out what the answers were. I'm a cerebral guy from the youngest age I can remember. I do not remember a time before I could read. I don't think that's true. I can remember times before I could read. But amongst my earliest memories are sitting on a couch with a stack of books next to me, because when I read, I could get people to leave me alone. And that's all I wanted as a child, was to be left alone, to be not controlled, criticized, assessed, monitored, scrutinized, bothered, and bossed around. I wanted to be left alone. And when I was reading, people would leave me alone. And I grew up in the 80s, and there was not a wide variety of age-appropriate reading material, so I just read whatever I get my hands on. I read any number of books that I could not make my way through hardly a single sentence of. But I'd force myself to get through it. And that instilled in me, that inculcated in me, a love of reading and a love of books. The more difficult, the better, because when I picked up a book and couldn't read a single sentence of it, I remember reading George Orwell's 1984, when I was about 10 years old, and it was dense, and I could not get through maybe 1 in 10 sentences, but I pushed myself to get through the whole thing. And that gave me a certain training toward reading difficult books. Well, that stayed with me. And the old man, my shrink, uncovered that. I went to college and I studied philosophy. I studied ancient Greek philosophy and classics. I learned ancient Greek. I wanted to read Plato and Aristotle and stuff like that. And I did. And I learned how to muddle my way through stuff in modern philosophy, which I will tell you, it will put hair on your chest, but it ain't necessarily worth it. Not everyone wants hair on their chest. But reading Kant will put it there. And nonetheless, I absorbed a love of disappearing into old, difficult books. And he drew that out of me, and I began to embrace it. And I began to turn back into old, difficult books. And that's mostly what I spend my time doing now. I read Herodotus and Thucydides, a couple ancient Greek historians. I read Zen stuff. I read commentaries on Plato and stuff like that. It brings me a lot of joy and peace and happiness. And I connect with that same feeling that was in my heart when I was a small child on the couch. I've been a performer informally my entire life. I had to perform for my parents. I had to create a band that could keep my dad happy, and I had to create a band that would keep my mother happy, and I had to create a band that could keep them both happy. That was hard. I could never do it for long, but I gave it the old college try. It was like a jazz drummer with polyrhythms, beating out 6/8 time, 4/7 time, 4/7. Yeah, 4/7 time with one hand, 11/2 time with the other. I think those are coherent time signatures, but I ain't sure. Work with me. So I was just a performer by nature. I was an octopus that had to constantly figure out what shape, size, texture, and color I was supposed to be and be it. I loved drama in high school. And a lot of me wanted to go off and do stand-up or drama, something like that. But speaking of drama, trauma and life intervened. I didn't do that. I did other things. I slammed dope and lived in a make-believe Hunter S. Thompson, William S. Burroughs world I talked about last time. I spent years as a college librarian. A lovely job, but one for which I'm almost uniquely poorly suited. But I did it anyway, because I had no idea who I was and what I wanted. That old man, my shrink, drew it out of me, asking me over and over and over again, what do I like doing? What brings me happiness? Learning new things brings me happiness. Reading old books brings me happiness. Doing some kind of performing like this brings me happiness. I learned that writing brought me happiness. And I learned in that process to follow that, because each one of those things I just mentioned also brought me happiness when I was a young child, a very young child. Those keys to my bliss. Those keys were formed when I was a young child. I was a performer, and I loved to make my folks laugh. Now, it was like a extortion racket, because my life was not worth living when they were in a bad mood. And I had to keep them in a good mood. And I worked very hard at it, and I always failed, but I always tried. Every minute they were in a good mood was a minute I wasn't suffering on the outside. But I learned to cram myself down and just become what the people around me needed. And the Grail Woods for me has been about learning and becoming who I am. And those things that brought me happiness as a child bring me happiness today. Those are part of me. Those are part of me. I embrace them. I love telling stories. I tell you stories. I love performing. I'm performing for you as close as I can to the character of the octopus in a hall of mirrors. Because this is Ben Johnson performing for you as close as I can to performing for no one. Just being an octopus in a hall of mirrors. The color of an octopus at rest. How about that? I used to see that image of an octopus in a hall of mirrors with a lot of self-loathing. You ain't nothing but an octopus, Johnson. And now I see it different. Octopus are giftedly intelligent creatures, uniquely sensitive to their surroundings. They got 8 different kind of brainish organisms that control their tentacles. I love the octopus. And when I think of an octopus in a hall of mirrors, I don't think of this pathetic, neurotic, semi-crazy guy who can't be anything except what other people want him to be. When I think of that octopus in a hall of mirrors now, I just think of an octopus at rest in the deep blue sea. No threats, no prey, no predators. Just the octopus at rest, playing, turning whatever color he wants to turn into. That's me learning and becoming who I am. And in the course of my shrink asking me these questions and me listening, that's me putting my left foot down and finding who I am, finding my path. Because my path to myself is bliss. It's those things that brought me joy as a child. They bring me joy right now as a 51-year-old man. I look in that mirror, I'm still Ben, I'm still that child. I'm an octopus at play. How about that? I'm an octopus at play. I can be any color under the rainbow. I can be any texture you want to name. I can get bigger, I can get smaller. I can be invisible, I can shoot out ink, and I can put on an extraordinary show. I'm an octopus at rest, an octopus at play, an octopus living my life. And I'm getting there one step at a time. And all those steps take me toward myself. All those steps take me toward the bliss of this guy, this Ben Johnson. There's only ever going to be one of me, and I'm right here, right now. And as much as I can, Pilgrim, I'm bringing every last ounce of my life to you right now, and to myself right now. When I feel myself slipping into that old woodcutter whittling on the past, I set that log down. When I feel myself turning into a keen-eyed hunter, looking for the happiness in the future, I remember that I'm an octopus at play. I got 8 tentacles to make my path in the trail, and I make them one step at a time, Pilgrim. That's how this octopus, this land octopus, got himself out of the Grail Woods, by learning and becoming who I am. And now I know, when I feel things about myself that give me bliss, I do those things. The things I do now, talking to you, I got one book I'm trying to sell, I got a screenplay treatment I'm working on, I got these videos I make, I pay the bills, and I live my life right now, today, in the present. I'm a pilgrim on the trail to the Western lands, learning and becoming who I am. And the thing about a pilgrim is that the pilgrimage goes someplace. The Western lands, a place of peace and happiness. But the pilgrimage is itself an act of devotion. I'm devoted to myself, to learning and becoming who I am. And that makes me a better human being to everyone around me, believe me. It is a gorgeous, beautiful day on the trail to the Western Lands. The sky in front of me is not quite sunny, it's cloudy, but it's cloudy in a beautiful way that is reflecting the blue-gray of the sky, the lavender of rosy-fingered dawn, reflected and refracted through the atmosphere and through those clouds. The blue-white snow on the ground, the yellow line on the road, the brown and green of the sticks in the trees. I'm so grateful that we have a lot of miles to walk today on the trail, Pilgrim. Let's walk them together. We got a lot to talk about, and daylight's burning. Let's get after it.